On this episode of Media Rebel Unplugged, how often do you think people should evaluate their subscriptions under their business?
Honestly,
I love ChatGPT. What advice do you have for people turning to it for its quote unquote CFO?
what you just said, use with caution. They'll try something and they don't actually give it time to work. And that's part of, or they want it to be accepted. I always go through big picture questions when I'm talking with clients about things like this, because that's not what you do.
Welcome back to Media Rebel Unplugged. I'm Janice. Today we're talking about what makes a true entrepreneur successful with money and leadership. Joining me is Jen Fizer. She is the CEO and owner of MKB. Jen helps small business owners and entrepreneurs go from financial chaos to clarity. Welcome to the show, Jen.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. I know we're excited to have you on because money and leadership really go together. Before we jump into that, let's talk about what led you into the world of finance and operations and what made you realize this is what you were meant to do.
I went to college, had no idea what I wanted to do, and ended up majoring in ag business. I graduated in December of 2007, upped into the job market in 2008, which was not a great time to be
Right? That was
in
the
the job
crash.
market for about 6 years. I had jobs that I hated. So I went back, I did some accounting classes, and eventually I started working as CFO. Loved being able to dive into finance and really understanding money, how it works, banks, lending, all of those different pieces. And while I was doing that, I had the entrepreneurial bug. October 2019, I bought a coffee shop and then we all got shut down in March of 2020. But I learned a lot from 2020. And then my husband passed away in November of 2020. And suddenly I was on my own. I needed to be able to provide for myself completely.
Well, I feel like any good entrepreneurial story is never short and easy. Life is full of adversity. It's how do we react to every one of those? And so, from what I'm hearing from you, is resilience.
Yeah.
You've been very strong and resilient no matter what life threw at you. Key thing that it's a recurring conversation here about entrepreneurs is we're always pivoting and that's what makes us successful. Like we don't quit. Quitting is easy. Look at Jeff Bezos. I think he has a wonderful story that everybody forgets about now because everybody's like, "Oh, he is this big billionaire." But nobody talks about the 7 years that he did not do well with Amazon. They were about to go bankrupt.
Yeah. And from a financial perspective here, it doesn't always mean that you have to be on the brink of bankruptcy and not quitting all the time. Those are big, fun stories to tell, like, oh, yeah, I was close to bankruptcy and then I was able to pull out of it and whatever. But like you mentioned, I learned so much that I've been able to apply to other businesses, apply to my own business. There's just endless amounts of lessons that you learn from those that as long as you are pivoting in a direction where you're like taking what you it's not a scared pivot, right? Like it's like, okay, this we're just going to redirect and make this next thing more successful.
Yeah, and I love that you mentioned that too. And I think this is true for entrepreneurs and business owners that you end up oftentimes launching one business that doesn't work out and you go to the next one. And it's not really failure if you've taken that lesson into what you're doing now. I myself have gone through different failures that got me to where I am, or even within my own business that maybe this wasn't a core focus that I wanted to have anymore. Maybe it's the way we market ourselves. And being that I'm a marketer, I see where marketing is an experiment. So you do have to pivot a lot. For anybody who's ever been in the world of marketing, once you become an entrepreneur, it makes total sense because you're like, okay, well, that didn't work. Let's try it this way. Or maybe we just timed it wrong, whatever that might be. That is very important.
Yeah. And it's always this fine line of you need to give things enough effort to know whether they're really working or not, right? There's difference between I've given this a good effort. I'm sure that this is not going to work, or I see the flaws in what I've done. Finding that balance, not like just jumping from thing to thing.
What are the most common patterns that you see with small business owners?
Honestly, a lot. kind of what we're talking about is they'll try something, let's say a new product line or a new edition, new offering, something like that, and they don't actually give it time to work. And day one, like we're going to launch this new piece of the business. And then weeks later, it hasn't had any sales. And they're like, oh, well, this isn't working. You have to give people time to adjust to what's happening, changing your hours, like whatever it may be and what kind of business you're in. There's just, you have to give people time to adjust to what the change is.
What you're saying is smart too. You can't have a set timeline. It's really about sticking to it, what you're really passionate about, what were you founded on, what principles you really believe in. When you think about when you're trying to grow awareness of that new service offering or, the new hours that people need to get adjusted to or whatever that is, that can take sometimes several months to a whole year or two.
Yeah, I'll give you an example of something. When I owned the coffee shop, we were a coffee shop and a restaurant, and I was always being asked, will you stay open late? So we started having one day a week being open later, and we went all summer and it was crickets. We pushed it and pushed it and pushed it. And finally I was like, this is not working. It's not worth staying open. And then the amount of people after we stopped doing that, they were like, oh yeah, we're gonna go to Brick House on Thursday night. And I'm like, well, now we're not open on so but it takes so long for people to adjust.
You're right. It is, and it is kind of funny, ironically, how that ends up working out when you're finally like, "Okay, I'm not gonna do this thing," and then they're like, "Hey, why aren't you?" Business owners can have a lot of shame when something doesn't work out, and it's not something that's really talked about a whole lot, and, like, it's okay to own that you tried something and it just didn't work for whatever
Yeah.
reason.
Absolutely. And that's having the ability to judge whether something is working and do not spend your time on things that are not making you money. Knowing that you've given something enough time and effort to see if it works, but then if it's not, shut it down, right? Like that's just like, don't continue. It's the sunk cost fallacy, right? Like people will keep doing things because they've got all this money invested in it, but if it's not working, just cut your losses and move fresh because it's so much easier to move forward than knowing that you've given something enough effort and time and it's just not the right fit. Understanding the whole big picture of it and knowing whether it's the right time to move on or not.
What advice would you have for them on that? Because that's something that, as we're talking about timelines, it's hard to know how much do we lose financially before we say, okay, this is not going to work out for me, while we're still maintaining hope that it's going to turn around and be
Yeah.
profitable.
I always go through some big picture questions when I'm talking with clients. I had a client, they were in a trade and then they decided to add a plumber in to their mix and it made sense for their business. They were adding a new service line. And so they were paying this plumber and there's not any plumbing jobs coming in. And so finally I was like, are we spending any money on marketing to let your people know? How are we even telling the public that there is plumbing available, right? Like that's you can't just add a plumber and then just hope people are calling you because that's not what you do. So, first of all, are we getting the word out enough about your new offering? So, the marketing behind it, is it supporting that? Have you given it enough time? You can't make that decision 30 days in. That's just not even possible, right?
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of like big picture questions that you need to ask yourself before you start diving into the nitty gritty of the numbers because I want to see if something is profitable or enough or not. But when we're talking about this kind of thing, it's like making sure that you've put in the effort to see if it works or not. So once you've answered those big picture questions and knowing that yes, I've put in this enough time and enough effort to make sure that the market is available and aware of this new thing, then dive into the numbers, be able to pull out. So this is where having your bookkeeping set up correctly and whatever your invoicing system is, being able to pull out data correctly so that you can see, are we actually losing money on that? How much is it costing us per month? If it's something that it's just like, well, it's just not working, but it's not costing us any money to run. Maybe you've just, it's a new service line, but there's no actual added expense. Keep it going, right? Like let's give it 6 months to a year, which seems crazy. Like that's a long time in entrepreneurial world, right? The work that you're doing now and the networking, the marketing, those things are not going to work like for 90 to 180 days minimum.
Yeah, you're planting the seeds during that time and you're really laying the foundation. And I see so many other people quit. I like to think of it like you're building a house, like here's your foundation, you got your walls up, now you're putting your roof on. And as your roof is almost done, now you're going to quit. It's funny how oftentimes we'll launch for one thing and then it ends up taking on a life of its own and becoming something else, a different focus on something else that you just never had that intention for. It's okay to still focus on the things that we're passionate about, but like you said, you can't take away the thing that's actually making that sustainability for you month in and month out.
Absolutely. Do not turn away business. Make sure you have enough clients that your bills are paid.
How often do you think people should evaluate their subscriptions under their business?
I probably quarterly, honestly. It's you can do it monthly, but I think that's probably overkill. Look at your subscriptions on a quarterly basis and evaluate what do you still need? Is there something new that you'd rather use and that's better? Are you paying for two services that do basically the same thing? That's an easy way to cut some costs from your business.
That's great advice for people. And I know when I get off here, I'm now going to evaluate my subscriptions.
I need to take
It
my
was
own advice probably.
It was on my to-do list. I mean, I also like whenever I sign up for a free subscription, I make sure I put it on my calendar as a reminder to like cancel it.
Yeah.
Even if I intend to keep it, at least it's still on there so I don't
Mhm.
forget, but just a little practice that maybe other people can apply as
Yeah.
well.
It happens to me sometimes with apps. Like you'll go like on your phone, right? Like you go to download the app and you're like, oh, it has a free trial. Like, and then it's just automatically connected to your app store payment method, right?
Yeah, or anybody has Gmail, it gets put into your promotions category. You don't see
Mhm.
the email.
I also have it like my junk email, email that I use. So when I'm like, oh, anything that's going to be the subscription that I don't want to see, like I just put that email in.
I do the same thing, and before you know it, it's like you have like 5 emails that you don't use.
Hmm. I honestly I have 2 phones, like, I have my business phone, and then I have the phone that I've had since I was 16, and I call that my spam phone because 'cause I'm like, I don't answer really any phone calls from people on that one that are not already in my contact list, but, I get 10 calls a day on it that are, like, spam possible.
I love all the business finance texts that I get. They're like, "We can finance you today for 100" and I'm like, "I
Yeah.
don't
"Oh,
need" right?
remember that $250,000 that you applied for? Now we can get it for you." I'm like, "W I don't
It feels
remember doing
so
that."
intrusive. It's like I can't see where that actually turns around and converts for those people very well. So if anybody's listening, when it comes to text marketing, that's one of the biggest no-nos in the industry, and I don't even know how they're getting away with it because the penalties for those because the compliance is so much more difficult, I don't know how they're getting by unless they just have so many burner numbers. I don't know.
Do you think it's a matter of like we're so inundated with texts and marketing texts now that people are just not paying attention?
Yeah, I think we moved from the world that we grew up in. We had phone calls, and then we went from phone calls to now we only want to text one another, and it feels more intrusive now when we receive a text marketing message because that's our main line of communication. Whereas, when we were growing up, we had telemarketers who would call us all the time, and think of how intrusive that felt because that's how we communicated. So when you take somebody's safe zone where they feel most comfortable communicating, and now all of a sudden it just makes them feel upside down.
Yeah, yeah, I've never thought about it that way, but yeah, like we're all text based now, so like getting one feels like a personal, like how did you get my number kind of feeling.
Exactly. I saw a recent survey and they said 95% of decision makers, particularly the C-suite, prefer to have email communication as their first point of contact or a LinkedIn message. But I also feel like we all have to watch that too, especially on LinkedIn. I hate when I make a connection with somebody and most of the time I can tell by their job title and the description of like what they do if it'll be a good connection or not. But when you lead right from the gate about A, yourself and then B, your services, and I don't respond, and then you keep on messaging me, I can promise you, you will not see conversion from that with anybody.
Yeah, I have that same thing. LinkedIn almost never respond to anybody in LinkedIn because I'm like, this is just even if it's a connection request, right? They're just trying to get into my inbox.
Oh,
and I'm gonna be sold on something. So, I mean, LinkedIn has kind of turned into a wasteland, I feel like, in some ways of just spam messaging.
yeah, I think LinkedIn in general is confused right now. If you go into the app, they've just updated it to now there's a tab for videos. So it's becoming such a social platform that they need to be careful about the type of social because that's another thing when we talk about like what people expect from you. We were communicating on there before. I mean, it was originally created to help us grow our career, whether that was through our education, our connections, job opportunities. And with videos, I think it's a great way that we could do educating people on different things going on, whether it is in the marketing world or, in the career world, even with like internships. But when we take that and now we're turning into a little bit more personal and it's like, don't you have Facebook for that?
Yeah. Yeah, that's not the place for it, right.
Right.
Well, and, I feel like I go on different platforms for different everybody does, right? Like, I am not going on to LinkedIn to be entertained, honestly.
Unless their algorithm is really structured to only handle those types of content, which it's not right now. It's just allowing anything. We're going to see disruption and it's going to really impact their numbers. But it's Microsoft. They've never really been leading the way when it comes to that in the first place.
I can go on a whole rant about Microsoft. Yeah, I spent an hour me and chat yesterday spent an hour trying to figure out something, and we were just going in circles.
I love that ChatGPT can be used for really good things like that because instead of you going on Google and looking for like what 10 different websites to find the answer, it now pulls everything into one, easy to replace. But then I think we also have to watch how we're using it because we could get bad advice. And I see that they're trying to put in there like we're not for legal advice and we're not for financial advice, but people are still using it for that. So what advice do you have for people turning to it for, like, its quote
God,
unquote CFO.
exactly what you just said. I'm like, use with caution, right? And even the example that I was doing yesterday, right? I was going in circles, and the reason I was using chat is because it's at least a little more interactive, and I could like take a screenshot of what I was looking at and give it to it, and be like, "Oh yeah, then you need to do this." But it was still giving me so many wrong things. I'd be like, these instructions that it's not even there anymore," and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, that retired in 2022. You need to do this now," and I'm like, I feel like that's something you should have known. That's not going to work. But the same applies for financial advice too. Like I use it as more of a, oh yeah, I might have missed that. Sometimes we'll catch some trends or some like pieces putting it together, but it is not a good source of like, do not just dump all of your information in there and then take what it says as like gold, because that is not the case. I'll even ask it, like sometimes I'll ask it about like doing journal entries, right? Like I need to fix somebody's books and I'm like, how should I do this journal entry? I'll enter it the way that it tells me to, and then I'll check it and I'm like, nope, that didn't work. So like everything you do, just double check it, use it as like, do not use it as like, okay, this is going to give me the right information and I know it can be true. It's just like I kind of wonder if like what's its thoughts on this and what are other people seeing. So I know that there are some people. I was talking to a guy the other day. He built a custom chat GPT that's like helping him make trades in the market, and it's doing phenomenally, but it's got such very specific parameters on it that like the general public is not going to have that built out to a way like I wouldn't trust it telling me stock advice. Like if I just typed into my own chat GPT, right? Like it hasn't been fed the right information. And that's too, I think it will get dumber as more people use it, right? Because it's just taking the collective information that's being put into it. And so, like a year ago, 2 years ago, I don't even know when chat came out, 3 years ago. At first it seemed really smart and it was like giving you good information, but the more information is out there, it doesn't know what's right or wrong. If I'm trying to decide between two things, like tell me
Mhm.
the pros and cons between this versus this, it's great for that because it pulls information and knowledge from different places. But yeah, it's not even for those things. It should be like a yes or no answer, like the journal entry. It should be able to tell me exactly how to do that. And it's
Yeah. I got so frustrated with my issues kinda similar to what you're talking about, like, it knew something wasn't gonna work and it was outdated, and I was just like I didn't realize I still had the speaker on, and I was like, "Oh, you dumbass." It submitted it, and it responded to me, and it goes, "I'm gonna have to set the boundary here. You can't speak to me like that." And I was like, "You're AI."
It's funny. I always joke, like, I always say please and thank you because I'm like, I need my, like, AI overlords to like me for, in the future when we're all
Right? When they take on their own
like, "I
emotions
was
in
nice
life.
to you. Remember this? I was nice to you."
Well, mine's gonna have it out for me because I
I
called
know
it a
you're gonna have to be
dumbass.
extra nice for a while.
Well, this has been a really fun conversation, and I'm sure there's gonna be people out there looking for the kind of human support that you offer and not the AI kind. So, what is the best way for people to learn more and to connect with you?
So we have a website, mkbcfo.com. We have Facebook, we have Instagram, LinkedIn, all of those. You can also email me, Jen, Jen, at mkbcfo.com.
Well, make sure that we include everything in the description for you. And so, you all, if you want to connect with Jen and her company, you'll be able to find her. Jen, thank you again for joining me. I've had so much fun talking with you today.
Thank you.
And I'm so glad you got to be on the show with me. If this episode helped you or made you think differently about money and leadership, please share it with somebody and subscribe so you continue to hear from wonderful people like Jen. And we'll see you next time.